On September 15, 1993, a man sat in a room in Illinois and signed a settlement agreement with the United States government. He did not sign this document because he was a diplomat. He did not sign it to close a trade deal. He signed it to stop a federal investigation into his bank accounts. The agreement was simple. The United States government would keep $460,000 of his money. In exchange, the government would stop asking where the rest of his millions came from. The court documents state the reason clearly. The money was identified as the proceeds of narcotics trafficking, specifically white heroin. The man who signed that paper is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Today, he controls the largest economy in Africa. Most people think political power comes from votes, speeches, or ideology. But in this investigation, we are going to ignore the politics. We are going to ignore the speeches. We are going to follow the money. We will trace how a heroin pipeline in 1990s Chicago built the financial engine that extracts value from Lagos today. You are watching Historic Capital. This is the story of the Chicago pipeline. To understand the crime, we must first look at the asset. In 1990, the asset was heroin. This was not low-grade street drugs. This was C heroin, Southeast Asian white heroin. It was 90% pure. It was expensive. It killed people. The market for this asset was Chicago, Illinois. Specifically, the distribution happened in the decaying steel town of Gary, Indiana. The devastation of the steel industry left a vacuum. Criminal gangs filled it. A man named Lee Andrew Edwards controlled the streets of Gary. He bought houses with cash. He bought liquor stores. He drove new cars. But Edwards was just a retailer. He needed a supplier. That supplier was a Nigerian trafficking ring. The ring was run by a man named Adegboyega Mueza Kande. He operated with a simple business model. He brought high-purity heroin from Nigeria into the United States. He sold it to local dealers like Edwards. The profit margins were massive. A kilogram bought for a few $1,000s in Asia could sell for over $100,000 in Chicago. But this business model had a problem. Drug dealers deal in cash, small bills, dirty money. You cannot walk into a bank with a suitcase of $20 bills without triggering alarms. You need a washing machine. You need a financial system to turn dirty street cash into clean electronic deposits. You need an accountant. This is where the paper trail begins. Enter Special Agent Kevin Moss of the IRS. In 1990, Agent Moss noticed something impossible. He was investigating the Akande drug ring when he found a network of bank accounts linked to the traffickers. One name kept appearing on the documents, Bola Tinubu. At the time, Tinubu claimed to be a simple employee. He worked for Mobil Oil Nigeria. On his credit applications, he stated his monthly salary was $2,400. He listed no other sources of income. Yet, Agent Moss looked at the bank records at First Heritage Bank in Illinois. In 1990 alone, Tinubu deposited $361,000. In 1991, he deposited another $1.2 million. Let's do the math. A man earning $20,400 a month somehow deposited $1.5 million in 2 years. Agent Moss picked up the phone. He called Mobil Oil. They confirmed Tinubu was a treasurer. They confirmed he had no access to transfer large amounts of company money. The money did not come from his job. Agent Moss kept digging. He found that Tinubu had opened a joint account with the wife of the drug lord, Akande. On January 13, 1992, Agent Moss called Tinubu directly. On the phone, Tinubu admitted he knew the drug lord. He admitted he transferred $100,000 to the drug lord's account in Houston. Then the story changed. Days later, Tinubu called back. He claimed he had no financial relationship with the gang. He claimed the money was family money. The US government did not believe him. They froze the accounts. In July 1993, the US attorney for the Northern District of Illinois filed a complaint. The document is explicit. It states that the funds in Tinubu's accounts represented proceeds of narcotics trafficking and money laundering. This leads us back to the settlement. Tinubu did not go to trial to clear his name. He did not fight to prove the money was legal. He settled. He agreed to forfeit $460,000 to the US Treasury. In forensic accounting, this is called cutting the loss. You give up a portion of the illicit capital to save the rest. You pay the cost of doing business. The US government took the money. The case was closed. Tinubu kept the rest of the millions. and he took that capital back to Nigeria. Now we must follow the flow of this capital. Money does not sit still, it transforms. In the mid-1990s, the political situation in Nigeria was chaotic. The military dictator Sani Abacha was in power. Tinubu positioned himself as a pro-democracy exile. He joined the Nadeko movement. He became a financier of the opposition. This is a critical moment in the laundering process. Illicit wealth from Chicago was converted into political influence in Lagos. The money allowed him to survive exile. It allowed him to build networks. It allowed him to return to Nigeria in 1999 as a hero. He ran for governor of Lagos State. He won. This is where the second extraction begins. The Chicago operation extracted money from heroin addicts. The Lagos operation would extract money from citizens. But the method was sophisticated. It wasn't about stealing from the treasury directly, it was about privatization. Tinubu realized that Lagos State was broke. It needed to collect taxes. So, a company was formed. Alpha Beta Consulting. The Lagos State government signed a contract with Alpha Beta. This contract gave the company the exclusive right to calculate and collect land use charges and taxes for the state. In exchange, Alpha Beta would keep a commission. Reports estimate this commission at roughly 10% or more of the revenue collected. Think about what this means. Every shopkeeper in Lagos, every landlord, every business owner, when they pay their taxes to the government, a private company takes a cut off the top. Who owns Alpha Beta? For years, this was hidden behind nominee directors. But in 2018, a former managing director of the company, Dapo Apara, blew the whistle. He filed court documents alleging that Bola Tinubu secretly controlled the company. He alleged the company was a conduit for money laundering. The court case disappeared. The files in the Lagos High Court were literally burned during the riots in 2020, but the flow of money remains visible. The mechanism is identical to the Chicago operation. In Chicago, the drug ring used a front man to wash money through the banking system. In Lagos, the political machine uses a consulting firm to wash tax revenue into private hands. We must understand why this system is allowed to exist. Why do the banks, the courts, and the security agencies look away? Because the system pays them too. This is the gatekeeper economy. When Tinubu became governor, he didn't just accumulate wealth, he accumulated people. He built a structure where loyalty is the only currency that matters. If you want to be a local council chairman, you need his blessing. If you want to be a market leader, you need his approval. This created a protection racket. In 2007, when his term as governor ended, he did not retire. He appointed his successor. He appointed the next governor, and the next, and the next. This ensured that the contract with Alpha Beta was never cancelled. It ensured that the land deals were never investigated. It ensured that the files from the 1993 Chicago heroin case were treated as fake news by the local media. We see this protection in the real estate market. While Tinubu claimed to be a modest politician, his family began buying property in the United States. In 2014, his son, who had no known job, bought a condo in New York for $2.15 million. Cash. In the same year, his daughter bought an apartment for $2.4 million. Cash. In 2011, Tinubu himself bought a property in Maryland for millions. Where does this liquidity come from? It is the dividend of the system he built. The heroin money provided the seed capital. The tax consultancy provided the growth capital. The US real estate market provided the safe haven. Who pays for this? You do. If you live in Lagos, you pay the cost every day. You pay it in the traffic jams caused by roads that were never built because the tax revenue was diverted. You pay it in the high cost of rent, driven up by money laundering in the real estate sector. You pay it in the aggressive harassment by market thugs who collect levies that never reach the state treasury. The Chicago heroin addict paid with their health. The Lagos citizen pays with their potential. The cost is also invisible. It is the cost of a reputation. When a nation's leader has a documented history of laundering drug money, the global financial system treats every citizen of that nation as a suspect. It becomes harder for a Nigerian startup to open a foreign bank account. It becomes harder to get a visa. it becomes harder to sign a trade deal. The green passport becomes a red flag. The world knows about the settlement of September 1993. The FBI knows, the banks know. They adjust their risk models accordingly. And every Nigerian pays the risk premium. We started this investigation with a signature on a settlement paper in Illinois. We traced the money from the streets of Gary, Indiana, to the bank accounts in Chicago. We saw it move to the political war chest of Nigeria. We saw it evolve into a tax collection empire in Lagos. This is not a story about a man who made a mistake in his youth. This is a story about a business model. The model is extraction. Whether it is extracting value from a heroin user or extracting value from a taxpayer, the mechanics are the same. Control the supply, laundering the proceeds, capture the regulators. Bola Tinubu did not just survive the 1993 drug investigation, he learned from it. He learned that if you have enough money, you don't go to prison. You go to the presidency. The Chicago pipeline didn't close, it just changed direction. If this investigation helped you see the system clearly, you need to understand who helped build it. In our next dossier, we will look at the foreign banks that make this possible. You are watching Historic Capital. Stay vigilant. Follow the money.